Today is World Obesity Day. It's worldwide, so there are events going on all over the world. They're really just to create awareness and to facilitate social and political change around the disease. So today we're going to go over all the root causes of obesity and the reasons for it. I've got a lot of awesome statistics for you if you're a stats nerd like I am. I've got some solutions to each of the roots of the problem, and those solutions are both for you if you're struggling with your weight, or just for somebody else, for other people, for society, because this is a really tremendous problem that we have in America, but also around the world. And we want to do what we can to take steps to alleviate the problem. And it's going to take everybody's voice, everybody's concern, everybody being educated for that change to happen over time. I would really appreciate, and it would facilitate change if you were to share this video as well. What I aim to do is to educate everyone on this disease and some solutions for it. So let's get started. What is obesity? Obesity is defined by the World Health Organization as abnormal or excess fat accumulation that presents a risk to health. So obesity is the point past just being overweight. It's where your health is significantly impacted. It's commonly measured through BMI, though there are definitely some other methods that are more accurate. BMI is usually just going on a calculator online and entering your height and weight, and it doesn't really take into account other factors such as bone density. Your doctor would probably be your best bet as far as getting an accurate BMI reading, but you can also look up the calculator and get a rough estimate. As you can see at the bottom here, this is for the United States. The obesity risk is an 8 out of 10, and a little bit more for kids, which is really sad. And we'll go into that a little bit as we progress. Obesity is a disease, and it needs to be recognized as such. It's caused by a variety of factors. It can be very complex, and you will see how complex it can be as we progress here. Due to all of these complex factors that contribute to obesity, obesity is not just a lack of willpower. And we need to stop looking at other people having this disease as a lack of motivation or laziness. And we will get more into that when we talk about stigma. Obesity is a risk factor for a lot of stuff. As you can see, there is a long list of chronic diseases that obesity can lead to. Among those are a higher risk of stroke, sleep apnea, increased depression and anxiety, liver disease, cancer, infertility, joint pain. The list goes on and on. There's so many things that obesity can affect, and also health issues that can cause obesity. It's a bit cyclical depending on different factors. All right, I made this its own slide because it's pretty serious right now. Obesity is a major risk factor for complications with COVID-19. And as you can see on the right, the higher the mortality rate correlates with BMI to some degree. So as I mentioned before, there are a lot of factors that contribute to obesity, which makes it, to some degree, to many degrees, out of a person's control. There are biological, genetic, environmental factors that contribute to somebody becoming obese. Environment is huge. We live in an environment today where ultra-processed foods are engineered to trick our brains into thinking that to crave it more, to think that we're not full. They are void of nutrients. Other environmental factors are at play as well. It's not very popular to eat healthy foods. They're not always easily available. They tend to be more expensive. Again, I'm reiterating again that it's very complex, and this is going to be a theme that we will see throughout these slides. So we often say the solution to weight problems is eat less, move more. And in a lot of ways, that's vastly oversimplifying the problem for a lot of people. That phrase implies that weight loss is not just about diet and exercise. It's totally ignoring any of the other factors. Don't get me wrong. eat less and move more is absolutely important, but it is not a significant factor in obesity management. And as you can see on the right here with the system influence diagram, there are so many other factors that contribute to obesity. And just telling somebody, oh, just eat less and move more is not going to solve the problem for them. Now, this is a serious one. Weight stigma is very dangerous. There are a lot of people that judge other people not knowing that person and what factors contribute to their well-being and their life. You can't just judge a book by its cover. You can't see somebody that's heavy and just assume that they're lazy. It's not only mean, but it's dangerous. People with obesity are regularly blamed for their disease. We don't want to reinforce this assumption, and this can damage the well-being and prevent people from seeking medical care. You might think that you are helping people by pointing out their flaws, but you are not helping them. Nobody wants to change when you're judging them and making assumptions about them. And that's why I've got this, in my opinion, down at the bottom. In anything that you do, any change that you want to facilitate, support and understanding is going to be what encourages and inspires that person to make a change. Assumptions and judgment really just make people feel hopeless. And I think, in my opinion, I think that this applies here. When somebody who's obese feels judged, it can turn into a dangerous cycle. That judgment can cause depression. That depression can cause overeating. The overeating can cause obesity, and then it just cycles and cycles and cycles. It's my approach, and this comes from a deep understanding. I was obese by the BMI calculator on the internet in 2016, and I wouldn't have taken steps to get better just because I was being judged by others. In fact, that's something that would make you feel more hopeless about it and perhaps even try to ignore the issue. It's only when you've got the help and support from somebody who's empathetic and understanding are you going to inspire and facilitate change. And then there's something else that's important to understand. Obesity is not just about weight. It is a health issue. You might not be obese, but you may very well still be living an unhealthy lifestyle. Weight gain is not necessarily the problem, it's the symptom. However, it can also be the driver for other diseases and health issues. So just losing pounds is really just a Band-Aid on the situation. You need to improve your health across your whole life, and it can include some of the things that are on the lower right here. Your connection to others is extremely important. Being close with your friends and family, having a healthy work life where you're satisfied in what you're doing, getting enough movement, taking care of your emotional health. Faith life could be anything. You don't have to be religious. It really is just spirituality in general. And nutrition, of course, is big. So in the past, obesity may have been a disease of rich countries, but now it's prevalent across the entire world. And interesting how super processed food has become more prevalent around the world. It's a huge factor, so that makes sense. But what's also interesting is that obesity tends to be more prevalent in lower income communities. And my personal theory on that is that, and it's probably not a personal theory, it's a fact, a lot of ultra-processed foods are cheaper. You know, think dollar menu. So that's going to encourage people of lower income to purchase and consume those types of foods because they're cheaper. And as you can see at the bottom, this is an income to obesity and overweight chart. And as you can see, there isn't too much variation. Now, this is one that I can get pretty emotional about. The way that we live as adults, we're setting the standard for our kids. So they are, as we are becoming more obese, our children are also becoming more obese. More kids are obese these days. Obesity has nearly doubled every 10 years. So it's only getting worse. Some of the really sad side effects of this is how it affects a child's emotional well-being and self-esteem and physical health. These kids tend to have poor academic performance and just an overall lower quality of life. And habits are created when you're young. So this is often carried through adulthood. And then it repeats with their kids. So prevention and treatment is vital to stopping this rise in obesity. And this is another reason that education is super important as far as healthy living, nutrition, all of it, so that kids and adults alike can make better choices for themselves and for their own health. To attack the problem of obesity, there isn't just one clear answer. There are actually 9 identified roots of obesity. And so everyone must work together to address these root causes. And we can do that through raising awareness and improving access to appropriate information. And if you are somebody in power, you're going to have a whole lot more control over facilitating policy change and health for the people that you influence. So let's go into the roots. Your biology. Our bodies are built to prevent you from starvation. You have hormones in your body that make you hungry. And it's a pretty smart system. If you are eating appropriate nutrients and you're eating whole foods, and you're eating slower, your body is going to tell, those hormones are going to tell your brain that you're full when you're full. However, with a lot of the ultra-processed foods that are out there, they're genetically engineered for you to crave them more, and they lack nutrients. So you are more likely to overeat those, eat them quickly. They trigger the reward centers in your brain, so it makes you want to eat more of it. So in a lot of ways, these mechanisms can be working against you in tandem with other factors, such as the ultra-processed food. Maybe you're eating to resolve any depression because you're activating those reward centers. And on the right here, this is where I have all of my potential ideas for solutions. Eating a predominantly whole food diet. And I'm not saying perfection, like totally kick all the Cheetos away and never eat them ever again. I'm not saying that, though if you can do that, that's excellent. If you eat whole foods, your body recognizes these foods and your body's more apt to work properly in conjunction with consuming those types of foods. It also takes 20 minutes for your brain to register that you are full. So with this in mind, you can begin to eat more slowly and mindfully at meals so that you realize when you're full. So that's another potential solution so that we can work with our biology instead of against it. Ultra-processed food just keeps becoming more prevalent. Lower left in that image, you get a pretty good idea of what an ultra-processed food looks like. Ultra-processed foods tend to be fairly devoid in nutrients. They probably have a lot of different preservatives in them. Many of these preservatives, they've been tested to some degree. With a lot of researchers out there, we haven't had enough years of researching that ingredient to even know if it really is good or bad for you. Like that's what we're facing with a lot of different alternative sweeteners, for example. Yes, in their 2-year study, nobody died, but researchers weren't able to follow people eating stevia every day for 50 years in order to make a good conclusive diagnosis there, for lack of a better word at the moment. So on the right side, here are some potential solutions for ultra-processed food just keeps becoming more prevalent. In the lower left in that image, you get a pretty good idea of what an ultra-processed food looks like. Ultra-processed foods tend to be fairly devoid in nutrients. They probably have a lot of different preservatives in them. Many of these preservatives, they've been tested to some degree, but we haven't had enough years of researching that ingredient to even know if it really is good or bad for you. Like that's what we're facing with a lot of different alternative sweeteners, for example. Yes, in their 2-year study, nobody died, but researchers weren't able to follow people eating stevia every day for 50 years in order to make a good conclusive diagnosis there, for lack of a better word at the moment. So on the right side, here are some potential solutions for the war on ultra-processed food. Those in power, gosh, there's so many different facets of where policy can be improved here. In government, obviously, combating a lot of the marketing that there is out there to push foods that are not good for you and for kids. So you might be up in politics, but it could be removed as maybe being an employer and avoiding putting a vending machine full of potato chips. Those in power have a lot more power and say over policy that can help facilitate change when it comes to reducing the prevalence of ultra-processed food. We could demand better quality. We all have more of a voice than we realize. If we were all to stop buying Takis one day, that company would probably pivot just a bit to get us to buy Takis again. When McDonald's, there's been a lot of voices out there that have facilitated some good change for fast food restaurants such as McDonald's. I believe, I don't have the statistic in front of me, but I believe that McDonald's chicken nuggets used to be a heck of a lot more disgusting than they are today. And that was facilitated by a combination of voices, people demanding better quality in their food. Improving access to healthier foods can help. For example, lower income communities that are perhaps not able to get whole foods at an adequate price. Improving access for low income to get whole foods is a potential solution. Educating yourself. The more you know that these types of foods are not good for you, the less you're going to buy them and the more that's going to affect those companies. Therefore, then they will change. And I've actually seen a lot of products remove their high fructose corn syrup over time. And I think that's been a combination of people understanding that it's not good for them and voicing it, demanding better quality. Time management and priorities. We often reach to ultra-processed food because it is easy. It's easy to grab. And this is on top of the fact that it's so craveable. It's been engineered to make you want to eat it and eat the whole entire bag. But it's also been made to be super easy. It's super easy to grab a ultra-processed cereal bar for breakfast. It's not so easy to turn on the pan and make some eggs and cut up some vegetables. That's where your priorities are going to play into your time management as well. If you realize that your health is more important than anything and that maybe you need to spend a little less time doing something else. I don't want to point any fingers or say anything that might upset anyone, but if you can realize that it should be a higher priority, it is possible that you might be able to make some time to better prepare healthier foods. Sleep and stress. When you don't sleep a whole lot and you're stressed out, you're more apt to grab for ultra-processed foods. I know this personally because I do it as well. If I'm not taking care of myself in every way, it's easier to fall apart and do what's most convenient. And also because ultra-processed foods can trigger those reward centers, if you're tired, you're going to want to reach for sugar. I realize this at night. When it starts to get late, I start to crave sugar. And that's because it kind of wakes you up. It triggers that reward center in your brain. So making sure you get adequate sleep and reducing stress to the best of your ability will help you avoid that draw toward ultra-processed foods. Genetic risk. So there are a lot of genes that have been identified as obesogenic genes, promoting obesity. However, an obesogenic gene is not necessarily a sentence. Often those genes work in tandem with environmental factors. If you do control the things that are within your control, you're less likely for that gene to have that effect on you. So for example, improving your lifestyle factors is going to make it far less likely that a particular gene that you have is going to make you obese. And on the lower left, you can see some that have been identified and the factors that they have been able to identify that these genes affect, the associations they've made. So there's a lot of improvement that's still needed in healthcare, not only within the healthcare system, but also access for individuals to get that healthcare. You can see some obstacles to treatment on the lower left there. There's stigma within the healthcare system. In the past, there weren't a whole lot of nutritional studies and classes for doctors and healthcare to educate themselves. I think that that's improving, but I believe there's still room for improvement. As you can see, lack of training for healthcare professionals, it's in the lower left. Some doctors don't even recognize it as a disease. So there's a lot of movement that needs to happen when it comes to healthcare access. So some things that we can do is, again, this education and awareness can help everyone, including those in the healthcare system, realize that this is a disease. Specialty clinicians need to become more available and being able to diagnose it early. And then obesity is not a quick to solve issue in a lot of cases. Somebody might need to see a specialist for obesity from an earlier age all the way on to later in life. So being able to access those specialty clinicians in the long term is going to be important too. And of course, we don't all have a whole lot of influence on this side of things, but for those of us that do, it's important that we educate ourselves and we speak up. Life events is another root cause of obesity. The nutrition you got as an infant can affect your chances of becoming obese. There are so many factors. Medications are well known, and not all medications, but some medications, for example, some antidepressants can facilitate weight gain, and some things that you can do. Now, what's really important is that you always focus on what you can control. Factors that you can control here are improving your nutrition or improving the nutrition of your child, for example, or your prenatal nutrition, getting as much movement as you can, trying to manage your stress, and trying to facilitate getting better sleep. You can't always control how you sleep, but you can control the environment and the factors around you that contribute to better sleep. And then if you believe your medication is making you gain weight, that is definitely something you should talk to your doctor as well, because many medications do have the side effect of weight gain, and many of those medications have alternative medications that you can try that may not make you gain weight like the one that you are currently on. Marketing. Now this is something that makes me angry. Lucky Charms, for example. I hate children's breakfast cereal. I absolutely hate it. And the kids beg me for sugary breakfast cereal all the time. And I'm not perfect. Every now and then I'm like, fine, I'll get it. But I try to get like the least worst one, like Honey Nut Cheerios. But in my opinion, this is just wrong. It is wrong to market hyper sugary, food dyed, totally lacking in nutrition foods to children. And that's clearly what, for example, Lucky Charms is doing, hence the bright colors and cute little leprechaun. I thought this one would be fitting for the month as well. So they're often these marketing strategies are geared toward children. There have been attempts at intervening in these food industries with their marketing, and you know, food industry has a lot of money, so those interventions don't always pan out very well. But I know that there is a continued battle with the food industry to reduce these types of marketing messages. Again, in my opinion, I also think that the fact that these foods have become so normal, and that's through marketing and their hyperpalatability, I think it's also hurting our society, because these are normal foods to us. Nobody gawks at a child that eats McDonald's 3 times a week for lunch. It's normal. And I think that this type of marketing is facilitating that, and that's no good. So what can happen is policymakers need to continue to try to intervene. And here's a good thought. Try not to buy it. Like I said before, if everyone were to stop buying something, or, you know, if there's a significant drop in purchasing something, that company is going to have to pivot, is going to have to change the way they do things for us to buy again. And companies need money, like food, companies need money to survive. So that is something that you can consider doing. And if you need, for example, if you need some alternative breakfast ideas for your kids, reach out to me. I'll give you some ideas. All right, mental health. This is a very deep root cause of obesity. And it also happens to be cyclical. And by that I mean obesity can cause mental health issues, and mental health issues can cause obesity. Not sure where the cart and where the horse is there. It differs depending on somebody's situation. It can poor mental health can cause dieting and binge eating. So this can go either way. It could be on the dieting side of things, it could cause anorexia, and that's the opposite of obesity, but it's still a problem. Binge eating from feeling sad or feeling a loss of control, or just trying to trigger those reward centers in your brain. Reduced the biological effect of reduced physical activity. When I was obese, I had anxiety and depression, and this anxiety caused me to feel anxious about the very idea of exercising. Um, so there's that cyclical effect again. I have anxiety about exercising, and so therefore I don't go out and exercise and get movement into my day, and I'm further harming myself. And that was a cause of anxiety. I think it was also a cause of poor nutrition, because poor nutrition makes you tired. But my mental illness at the time definitely facilitated my obesity at the time as well. Having poor mental health can cause you to have poor self-esteem and low self-worth. If you are to have low self-worth, you're not going to prioritize or even care about your own health. So that can facilitate obesity. I believe the weight-related stigma, that stigma we have toward obesity, can harm that person's sense of self-worth and facilitate developing depression. So I think that's what they meant there in that part of the chart. Stress and sleep, that is another root cause for obesity. Lack of sleep disturbs your hormones, which it can throw you out of whack and make you think you're hungry when you're not. What we can try to do to reduce stress and to try to get more sleep is to do whatever we can to reduce those day-to-day stress levels. I know it's hard. I know it's easier said than done, but baby steps. If you aren't getting enough sleep, try to identify the reason why you're not getting enough sleep, and maybe it's many factors. Maybe start a sleep journal. Write down what you ate that night or whatever other factors you think might be affecting your sleep, and try to take baby steps toward targeting small factors one at a time. Try to work on the way you react to stress. There's a lot in the mindfulness. Trying to think of a book that I read. There are several books on mindfulness that help you learn how to control your reaction to stress, because that's at least half of the equation. How you respond to stress is going to determine how much of that cortisol you're shooting through your body, and thus how much you're harming yourself. So, all right. I'm mentioning stigma again because it is also a root cause. I think it is not very prevalent these days, but so incredibly important to develop self-compassion for yourself and develop compassion for others. One of the biggest things that I had to learn when I started my health journey was to start loving myself, start showing myself self-compassion. If you are not showing yourself self-compassion, a lot of things can happen. You can give up easily when you're trying to work towards better health or towards goals. You can be too hard on yourself. You can become a codependent person, and I think that this codependency can be with others, such as codependent relationships. I think this can come into play with your relationship with food or with alcohol or with drugs. Self-compassion and self-love is really the root of a lot of problems, in my opinion. And then when it comes to stigma regarding the thoughts you have of others, to develop the capability to be compassionate about other people in their situation is incredibly important. And this touches on way more than just weight stigma. Self-compassion and compassion for others can literally change the world in so many ways. So I think it's important to try and develop this quality for yourself. All right, so in conclusion, for those of you who want to help others, you don't necessarily have this disease yourself, but you want to be able to help others, you need to use your voice. People in influential positions, of course, are going to have the most power to be able to facilitate change, but there's so much that you can do as well. Educating people, setting a good example for others, being compassionate toward others, like I had said before. And some of these areas of influence that you might have that could really make a massive change is employers, for example. As employers, I'm not an employer yet, but I probably will be one day. We need to care and prioritize employee health. Maybe that's having benefits for like a gym or whatever, but it really could just be as simple as not making super ultra processed foods so easily available. Don't put a vending machine in that has a bunch of junk in it. I think there's actually vending machines you can get now that have higher quality snacks. If you're going to cater food, don't cater Burger King. Having good health insurance for your employees. And then school leadership. This one's important too. Facilitating the change that's needed in school cafeterias is really important. And there's so many other ways. If you're influencing somebody somehow, and we all are influencing somebody somehow. For example, I'm a parent. I have got 4 kids in my house. I influence the kids and I influence my significant other. You have the power to change. And for those of you who need help, I would like to help you. And if we need help from doctors and other types of specialists, because I'm not a doctor, but I am going to be your cheerleader. I am going to encourage you. I am going to guide you with baby steps to implement healthy habits into your life. I will advocate for you if I can help you find what you need where you need it, if I'm unable to provide it. And what I do is it's a sustainable weight loss program. And, you know, I've been thinking of changing it from weight loss program because honestly, it is a healthy lifestyle coaching program that leads to weight loss. But focusing on your lifestyle and having a healthy lifestyle is going to make you healthy for life. Being able to develop these habits is going to make you healthy for life. And this is going to be something that you pass on to your kids. And you're going to inspire your husband. And you're going to inspire your cousin. And it starts with you. So, as you can see on the right, it looks like my face is going like this in that preview there. I was obese at one point, and I made it out. I made it out of the hole. I understand that obesity, as well as a lot of mental disorders and other situations, it can feel like you are deep within a hole and that you can't get out. The more you try, the harder you try, it feels like you just keep slipping. I understand that feeling. I used to relate depression to that, but I also relate obesity to that, and heck, alcoholism can be like that, a lot of other things. But when you're stuck in this hole and you're struggling to get out of the hole, you're going to need some help. You're going to need some support. You're going to need that guidance, the accountability, the hope, and the encouragement. So I didn't get out of the hole alone. So it would help for you to get help to get out of that hole. But what I can promise you is that if I can do it, you can do it. And I truly believe that you can do this. And here's my transformation for those of you who didn't know me. And with that, I'm gonna finish this off with a commercial that I made for my weight loss program. It's super short. I have another sustainable weight loss program starting March 15th. I would absolutely love to make you my next transformation story. I would love to help you. I will talk to you soon. Bye.